Now to mining and the ongoing controversy over how its byproducts are released into the environment. A zinc mine near Strathalbyn has the right to release treated water into a local creek, and that's creating division in the community, as 7:30's Rebecca BRICE reports.
This bubbling vat of ore is on its way to becoming zinc, with the help of some chemicals and water. And there's no shortage of water at the Terramin mine in Strathalbyn. In fact, it's the opposite that's causing problems. The tailings dam is holding 10 times more than allowed under the company's licence because of flaws in its hydrology modelling.
Once the mining started and the water levels were seen to be in excess of what the original designs anticipated or forecast from the groundwater, that's when we had to seek permission and got permission from both the Alexandrina Council and EPA to discharge treated water.
Until last week, Terramin was sending it to an old council sewage pond across the road. It had to stop when it was told the council needed to do some works. Terramin says once the water goes through this reverse osmosis plant, it's more pure than the local river, so the river should be an acceptable place to dump it. But that's not how some of the locals see it.
It could be catastrophic if things go wrong.
The water would go into the Burnside Creek, which feeds into the Angus River downstream of the Strathalbyn township. A few kilometres further south in Belvedere, the Angus flows through DONNA PRUSA's property.
We've got 1,500 olive trees that we water with the river water, and if the water's toxic, then obviously people can't use our oil and eat our olives and things. So, yeah, and I've also got 3 children that play down in the river, and if it's toxic, obviously I'm not going to let them, and I've got stock as well.
Another 15 kilometres on, the Angus ends at Lake Alexandrina, one of the River Murray's World Heritage sites.
We really don't have enough information about a lot of how these water systems work. We haven't had monitoring over a long enough period right through the Angus to actually know how it's going to respond.
Terramin wrote to the Environment Protection Authority stating it would start re-injecting the wastewater into its bores. But as a backup, it wanted approval to discharge up to 16 litres a second into the Burnside Creek.
We always require or like ourselves to have 2 plans. Losing the steads means we only have 1 plan left, so the creek as an option is a contingency plan.
It included a table of the water quality. In response, it was advised that based on the table, the proposal to discharge the water was acceptable to the EPA. The authority encouraged Terramin to do certain things, such as contact the neighbouring landowner and make sure the water didn't cause erosion, but there were no conditions or formal approval.
The EPA has a water quality policy which sets the limits which are allowable to discharge into watercourses, and if you meet that policy and those limits, then you don't need any EPA approval.
Keith BALDRY says the company didn't even have to write.
The water's high enough quality that it meets the policy.
I think about what I had to go through to get my house here, to make sure that my runoff from my roof wouldn't go into the river. We had to have so many rainwater tanks in place, and the same thing with my septic system.
Terramin says its data comes from an independent company that's been testing its wastewater every week for more than 2 years.
They're independent, nationally accredited bodies, and they have that reputation to uphold.
But the locals don't want to rely on figures from the company or its contractors.
I think one of the problems with all of these issues where there's been self-monitoring is that there's not the resources when there's a mistake to come in and say, A, how did this happen? B, how do we fix it? And C, how do we make sure that it never happens again?
The catchment group says Terramin's 2-year track record of non-compliance with its dam volume provides little assurance it will abide by any new requirements. DONNA PRUSA points to the company's website.
It says the Angus Zinc mine has a 0 discharge policy, which means that no water or waste leaves the site. Everything is recycled back into the processing and mining, including our water. And that, I said, that's posted on as part of their environmental credentials.
That would be an update required on the website.
The zinc mine is no stranger to controversy. Some didn't want it ever built.
There was opposition to this. There was opposition to this politically. and we bit the bullet, but we insisted that it had the best environmental standards in Australia.
When it was still in the concept stage, the company told residents there would be no impact on local waterways. They see this as breaking that promise. They're also suspicious about the one-week deadline Terramin put on its request to the EPA, suggesting the approval was rushed through without proper consultation. But Terramin says it simply wanted to create a sense of urgency so it would get a prompt response. Rob HOWIE assures the discharge is by no means a fait accompli.
The only time that Terramin will pump water into Burnside Creek as a plan B is once we have all relevant approvals and have consulted relevant bodies and neighbours.
But a neighbouring resident who was briefed by the company this week told the ABC he was given a different story, that the use of the creek was imminent. The catchment group wants a full environmental impact study before any water's let go, but the EPA says it's not required.
The water's of such high standard, I mean drinking water quality, so no, there'll be no value in doing further assessment of that. Clearly we're asking for monitoring of the water to make sure that it does meet those standards, and we receive those reports on a monthly basis.
He says the EPA also inspects the mine several times a year. Terramin has a 7-year licence, but 2.5 years in, it's considering extending it on the back of new exploration. That's only likely to amplify opposition sentiments.
People in this area are very tired, they're exhausted, because we just get rolled so many times.
Rebecca BRICE there.